Listening to Montgomery officials from both the county and the city giving a brief update of what we know now about what happened overnight when those storms tore through the Flatwood community in North Montgomery County. We do know that 2 people died and another one in that same family was taken to the hospital.
And the sheriff mentioned that one of the deceased was a minor. It's always terrible when you lose someone, but to lose what's potentially a child is just devastating. You heard them talk a lot too about storm shelters and sirens. I know I heard the sirens at my home early this morning. Amanda actually texted me at around 2:15, 2:30, making sure I was in my safe place this morning. Amanda, talk a little bit about the timeline of this particular cell that moved through that area.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize this point too. When it comes to warnings, tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings, we here at WSFA do not issue warnings. That is a government entity. National Weather Service offices are staffed with very talented, educated, experienced meteorologists. And let me tell you one thing about this storm that was impressive is that the warning that came originally out of Dallas County through southern Autauga came with ample notice. We're talking upwards of a lead time of 15+ minutes for our friends in Autauga County. Now, when that cell was moving through southern Autauga County, it still was kind of bouncing up and down. There was defined rotation, but never ever confirmation that this was a funnel cloud touching the ground. I'm going to walk you through this kind of minute by minute. We're right now at 2:58. You can see the timestamp on the banner. At 3 o'clock sharp, the National Weather Service office issues that warning that includes the majority of Elmore County, but it also does include the area in question. So we're talking a lead time, again, for a lot of our friends in southern Elmore and the extreme northern portion of Montgomery County, 10-15+ minutes of lead time. Now, obviously a very tragic situation where life was lost, but we don't know the information behind, did these people have the weather information that they needed? Did they have access to those things? So that's why we always tell you have multiple reliable ways of getting weather information. You cannot solely rely on your cell phone. Cell phones, they're smart, but sometimes they don't work. Weather radios are a crucial tool that every single house needs to have, and you cannot, and I cannot emphasize this enough, rely on tornado sirens alone. Those are not meant to be heard inside of an enclosed building. Tornado sirens were created for people to hear weather warnings outside, originally for farmers several decades ago, because that was the only way to get information to people who were outdoors during the day. So yes, a lot of people talk about hearing tornado sirens, and they are a great added benefit. That cannot be the only tool you use, though, to get weather warnings, especially during the middle of the night. So here's a little bit after 3 o'clock when we have that storm still in Autauga County, but I do want to zoom in a little bit closer and we can show you the data coming in kind of minute by minute. You do see that northern part of Montgomery County, right where the river meets the county line with Montgomery and Elmore. We're still talking this cell in Autauga County, so several minutes of lead time. And as I walk you through this, it doesn't look super well defined at first, but definitely gaining shape and momentum. And unfortunately, right around 3:12, we start to see a little bit of an appendage. This is likely the radar indicated tornado crossing out of Autauga into Elmore and then northern Montgomery County. The area in question, though, north of the zoo, we still have about a 7-minute lead time before this storm inches closer to the lower Wetumpka Road area in North Montgomery. I actually used to live over there when I first moved here back in 2014. My first apartment was right over there, so I know that area very well, and it becomes very much well defined. Here's 3:17. I want to zoom you in a little bit closer and then show you the velocity data. Right now, east of Jackson Lake Island, over the Alabama River Parkway and Lower Wetumpka Road intersection. So this is just north of the Coliseum, north of the Northern Boulevard, and this is about the time when that tornado would be approaching the area. So 3:17, warning issued at 3 o'clock sharp. That is a 17-minute lead time, and that is not us bragging at WSFA. That's us giving all the praise to the National Weather Service office meteorologists in Birmingham for giving such an exceptional lead time on a very destructive storm. Now, as we switch things over to velocity, you can see this is a very well-defined area of circulation. We switch things over where the greens and red come together. That is rotation, very much indicating there is likely a tornado on the ground. Jasmine, and Bethany, a very sad morning as we're obviously going through the process of watching what happened last night and trying to pick up the pieces. 2 people unfortunately lost their lives last night because of this. If we can emphasize anything and learn anything from this situation, is multiple reliable ways of getting weather information are crucial. And if you live in a mobile home, you need to think of places to go when a tornado watch is issued and not wait for a tornado warning to act. So obviously, there's still a lot of questions that we might not ever get answers to, but this was a very well-defined storm that had a previous track record, and we're so thankful for the National Weather Service office in Birmingham, an amazing office that we are getting information from. They did an excellent job issuing these warnings. Cannot praise them enough for this situation overnight.
Amanda, let's talk a little bit about what happens now as we move forward. I spent a lot of hours there this morning in that area. I was there as the sun was coming up to see that very distinct sight of a tornado that snaps those trees, that snaps the power poles. I know when there's a death in a situation, the National Weather Service does make that storm a priority. What happens now to determine exactly what came through and how strong of a storm that was?
Well, normally when we're looking at radar signatures, some of them are very well defined, and we call them textbooks. Let me tell you that this right here is a very textbook signature of a strong supercell storm that has this appendage and this hook. That would be right where the rotation and the strongest of the tornado would be. The National Weather Service office saw that opportunity to give a warning ahead of time because the storm had the capability of tightening up. It had done that before, but now that the storm has moved through, they have a specialized team of meteorologists who are trained to go look at survey damage and understand what kind of wind speeds cause what kind of damage, and the difference between obviously rotation in the atmosphere like this radar indicated tornado that passed through very early this morning, or maybe a straight line wind event. So they have all the same information that we have, looking at reflectivity data like you're seeing right now, velocity data to show the direction of the wind speed, but they'll also have boots on the ground looking at the damage, and they are all very much trained and certified to understand what certain damage correlates to the intensity of a storm or a potential tornado. This is likely going to be at least an EF1, potential low-end EF2, and if you haven't necessarily had a lot of reading up on tornado ratings, they go from EF0 to EF5, and that is rating them based off of the strength of the maximum wind speed of the actual funnel cloud itself. So we're going to be in contact with the National Weather Service office. They gave us information this morning saying they have 2 crews going out, one heading down to Montgomery, northern Montgomery and southern Elmore County, others going across the state because it was an active night. This was not the only storm in town for us. This was a very long-lived track, so we definitely are keeping our eyes peeled on the information the National Weather Service will eventually send to us, and once we get that, Bethany, we'll make sure to make that public to everyone as well.
Amanda, it's also safe to mention, important to mention, we should leave that area to the professionals.
Yes.
We did hear the sheriff say earlier that there are still a lot of trees down, a lot of power lines that are down. They do have that section of Lower Wetumpka Road still blocked to any traffic that doesn't have to go through that area. Asking folks to just not be a sightseer just yet. Give them some time to get that area cleaned up, especially in the area where the fatalities occurred. They need a little bit of extra time to make sure that that is a safe area.
Yeah, we'll have more on this and more from Amanda coming up in about 30 minutes on Alabama Live.